Here are the 5 biggest wastes of money in your 20s. And before I get into them, I'm not saying you should never spend money on any of these, right? I eat out, I buy things I don't necessarily need, I enjoy going out with my friends, and, I definitely enjoy spending money on things that make my life more enjoyable. But the problem is when these purchases become so normal that you don't even think about them anymore. Because some of the biggest drains on your finances aren't necessarily one massive purchase, although they definitely can be, but a lot of times they're the little purchases that you make over and over again. And when you're in your 20s, that money could be doing something much more valuable, which is actually building your future. So let's get into the 5 biggest wastes of money I think you should watch out for. Number 1, and this may sound like a broken record for those of you that have seen my videos before, a brand new car. And this is probably the most expensive thing on this list. Cars are expensive enough as it is, right? But buying brand new means you're often paying a premium for something that immediately begins depreciating. As soon as you drive that car off the lot, you've lost thousands of dollars in value on that vehicle. And when you're in your 20s, it's incredibly easy to convince yourself that you can afford an expensive car because you're looking at the monthly payment or biweekly payment, whatever it is, instead of the total cost. And I fell victim to this too. It's only $400 every 2 weeks, but then you add insurance, gas, maintenance, repairs, and interest if you're financing it. And suddenly that car is costing you a significant amount of money every month. And I'm not saying never buy a new car, right? If you can comfortably afford it and it's something you value, that's your decision. But I'd encourage you to ask yourself, what else could this money be doing, right? Because the money going toward a more expensive car could, maybe be going towards investments, an emergency fund, paying down your debt, or, maybe saving for a house. And when you're young, those dollars have a lot of time ahead of them. So, I'd personally rather drive a reasonably priced car and build wealth than have some fancy car and, a nearly empty investment account. Number 2 is food delivery. And this one can be sneaky because, ordering food doesn't necessarily feel like a major financial decision. You open an app, you pick something, you order it, and, suddenly $30 or $40 is gone, right? Do that a few times a week, and that starts becoming real money, right? Let's say you spend an extra $25 on delivery fees, tips, and the markup compared to actually going and picking up or, even making your own food. If you do that 4 times a week, that's about $100 a week, right? That's $400 a month, right? And then you look at that in a yearly perspective, that's almost 5 grand a year. So I'm not saying you can never order food, right? Sometimes you're busy, sometimes you're tired, sometimes you just want the convenience. We've all been there, right? And that's fine. The problem is when delivery becomes your default, right? Maybe you're not just paying for the food, right? You're paying for convenience, and unfortunately, convenience can be pretty expensive. So if you're trying to save money, one of the easiest places to look is at how often you're paying someone else to bring you food that you could have either picked up or just made yourself. Number 3, and this is a huge one. I've seen so many people around my age fall victim to this, and it's excessive nights out. And this one can be especially difficult because, again, I'm not going to tell you to stop having fun, right? You're in your 20s, go out, see your friends, have experiences, and, enjoy your life. But going out can get expensive really quick, especially nowadays, right? You go out for dinner, then drinks, then an Uber, then maybe another bar, and then food afterward. And, suddenly one night that you thought would cost, say, $50 ends up costing you like $200. And, do that every weekend, and you're spending hundreds or even maybe thousands of dollars a month on it. And again, I'm not saying that's automatically bad, but, if you have the money and it's something you genuinely value, of course, go for it. But if you're consistently saying, I can't afford to invest, I can't afford to save for a house, I don't have an emergency fund, while you're spending hundreds of dollars every weekend going out and, buying bottle service, then that's where there's a problem. You don't have to choose between having a life and building a wealth. You just need to find a balance with it. Number 4 is impulse shopping, especially online. It is so easy to impulse shop when you can do it from, the small screen on your phone while you're sitting on your couch, right? You see something on Instagram or TikTok, Amazon, or some random website, and 5 minutes later you've bought it, right? The problem is that companies have gotten so good at making us want things that we didn't know we wanted or didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago. And online shopping removes a lot of the friction that used to exist. You don't have to drive to the store, you don't have to leave the comfort of your home. You could buy something at 2 in the morning while you're lying in your bed, right? And that's dangerous for your wallet. So here's something I've started trying to do. If you see something that you want, but you don't actually need it, I wait. I honestly wait. maybe it's 24 hours, maybe it's a week. It usually depends on how much money the thing that I want is. And, sometimes I still want it. And if I do, I can afford it, I'll buy it, right? But a lot of the time, I completely forget about it. And that's when you actually realize, I didn't actually want that. I just wanted, the dopamine hit of buying something. So before you actually buy something, ask yourself, would I still want this if I hadn't seen the advertisement, right? Like, do I actually need it? Am I still going to care about this in a month? Because, I've noticed myself, in my past, I've bought something and then a week later, I'm like, I didn't really need that, right? So those questions can save you a lot of money. And number 5 is, and it's hard for me to say because I really enjoy video games, but in-game and app purchases, right? And this one is especially sneaky because the individual purchases can seem so small, right? It's $2 here, $5 there, a $10 V-Buck package, or whatever it is, right? None of these seem like a big deal individually, but that's exactly how they're supposed to work, and that's why they work on us, right? It's so easy to spend money when you don't feel like you're spending much, right? You just want to buy a new skin in the game. But then you notice a year down the road, you've bought 10 skins. Do you use all those 10 skins frequently, right? And that's something you have to be asking yourself. And, like I said, down the line, before you know it, you've spent hundreds of dollars on things that, well, have absolutely no resale value. And again, may not even matter to you down the road, right? 6 months from now, you'd be like, oh, like I wish I didn't really spend that. And again, I'm not saying spending $5 on something in a game makes you financially irresponsible. That's not the case at all, right? If you enjoy a game and you want to spend some money on it, that is completely your choice. The problem is when these tiny purchases become an automatic thing. So every once in a while, look at your bank or credit card statements, actually see where your money is going, because you might be surprised by how much you're spending on, things that barely register in your mind when you buy them. And there's a common theme here. The problem isn't necessarily, any single purchase, right? It's mindless spending. Buying something because it's convenient, because you're bored, because you see other people that have it, or, because it's only $5, whatever it is, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with treating yourself, but if every purchase is a treat, eventually your entire budget becomes a treat. And that's when you start wondering, where did all my money go? Meanwhile, you haven't made one huge purchase, you've just made hundreds of little ones. And this is where opportunity cost comes into play, right? Because every dollar you spend is a dollar that can't be used somewhere else. You could spend $500 on random purchases this month, or you could, invest that or save that, or again, put that in your emergency fund. And I'm not saying that one option is always right, because money is supposed to be enjoyed to an extent. But you should understand what you're giving up when you spend it. Because when you're young, the money you save and invest today has something incredibly valuable, which I always talk about. Again, it's going to sound like a broken record to those that watch my channel, but it has time. So the 5 biggest wastes of money I would watch out for in your 20s are brand new cars, food delivery, excessive nights out like bottle service and just blowing your money, impulse shopping, and in-game and app purchases. Again, I'm not saying you have to completely eliminate these things. I do these things from time to time. I'm not trying to tell you to never have fun. All I'm saying is spend intentionally, right? If you love going out with your friends, budget for it. If you love gaming, spend some money on it, right? Like I do that. But don't let that spending become automatic, because building wealth isn't necessarily about never spending money, right? We're all going to spend money. It's just part of life. But it's about making sure the money you spend is actually buying you something that you value. And if you're in your 20s, remember, you don't have to sacrifice your entire life to build wealth. You just have to stop wasting money on things that you don't actually care about. So hopefully you guys were able to take something from this video. If you enjoy content like this, please feel free to subscribe. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.